23rd of February 2022.
Sydney's first fatal shark attack in almost 60 years.
A man was taken in a shocking mauling.
From news.com.au. News.com.au.
I'm Andrew Bucklow, and I've got news for you. Well, I think it's fair to say Australia was rocked last week by that fatal shark attack at a Sydney beach. 35-year-old Simon Nellist was training for a charity swim at Little Bay when he was mauled by a shark, which was suspected to be a 4.5-metre great white.
Some guy was swimming, the shark came and attacked him vertically. We heard a yell and then turned around, it looked like a car just landed in the water. Big splash, it's just blood everywhere, it's really bad, it's really bad.
In today's episode, we'll meet the founder of Bite Club, which is a support group for people who've been affected by shark attacks, and he'll tell us about the day he was almost killed back in 2011.
I looked down at my left arm and I could see the forearm muscle was hanging off but still attached. I was really fortunate that it didn't just slice it off completely.
We're also going to chat to a shark expert to find out what we should do if we ever find ourselves up close to a shark in the open water. Joining me now is Dave Pearson. He's a shark attack survivor and he's also the founder of Bite Club, which is a support group for those affected by shark attacks. Dave, can we start by talking about your close call? You were attacked back in 2011. Talk me through what happened.
Yeah, it was just a normal afternoon surf, basically. So I just went for surf after work. I'd picked up a new surfboard the afternoon before, so I was really keen to get out in the water. So I rang my neighbour on the way home and asked if he wanted to lift out to the beach. So out we went as usual, and no different than any other afternoon. And I paddled out. There was a few waves. It wasn't that special, but there was a few reasonable sized waves. And within 5 minutes, I'd caught 3 waves, and my neighbour hadn't even caught a wave yet. And it was quite funny because I was like as keen as. So, and everyone said that's why the shark got to me. I was being too much of a hog, but. But yeah, I was just paddling back out after the third wave, and then things sort of changed. And there was a few sort of fortunate things that happened. And one was I was kind of looking off to my left-hand side a bit where the other guys were sitting in the water still. And the shark actually came from just off to my right-hand side. So I wasn't directly facing it when it came and hit me. So what actually happened is the shark come from reasonably deep water, because I was paddling back out in the rip, and charged up from the bottom with its mouth open as they do, and its bottom jaw hit my surfboard around about just off to the nose on the right-hand side, and its bottom teeth lodged straight into the board. And then its nose, as it continued over the board, because I was sort of still leaning to the left, its nose hit me on the right-hand side of my head. So the best thing you can do in a shark attack is to fight it, and it had already instigated that by basically taking a headbutt from the side of my head. The other good thing about that is it rendered me semi-conscious, so a lot of the panic's gone when you're not actually aware of what's happening. So it flipped out of the water and took me down to the bottom with it. One of my mates was watching. He heard this loud smacking noise and turned over and looked over to where I was, and what he thought he was looking at was a large dolphin had jumped out of the water and was going back in. And then he said he was thinking, but wasn't Dave paddling out there a minute ago? And yeah, a couple of seconds later, he said my board popped back to the surface, and a few seconds after that, followed by myself, and I proceeded to climb back onto the surfboard and sit there and take stock of what happened. And what had actually happened was the shark's top jaw, as it continued in the trajectory of flying through the air with me in its mouth, had trapped my right arm between the surfboard and its teeth, and proceeded to tear off basically my forearm muscle, and my thumb went in the side of its mouth and the rest of my hand was outside of its mouth, so hooked in. So it had stopped my arm going down into its throat, and obviously saved a lot of the damage that could have happened. And I was really fortunate once again that the damage wise it wasn't too bad. And when we're in the bottom, I believe what was happening in the bottom was it was now as confused as I was, because obviously its nose isn't feeling very well from hitting my lumpy head, and I was still stunned trying to go, hang on, I was paddling out, now I'm on the bottom of the water. What's going on here? And all I remember from all of that is lots of bubbles and something flashing in front of me large, and it was a bit grey, a bit brown underwater, so it was hard to figure out what was going on. But yeah, when I sat on my surfboard, I looked down at my left arm and I could see, obviously the forearm muscle was hanging off but still attached. I was really fortunate that it didn't just slice it off completely. And I was sitting there watching blood squirt out around about 6 to 8 foot from where I was sitting on the board.
God.
And I was looking at my white bones and I was thinking, wow, bones really are white, like all these dumb things are going through my mind, and I'm going, wow, the water was turning red around me, and I'm going, wow, I've been attacked by a shark, and the movies get it right. So there's all these weird things going on in my head, but the best thing was I wasn't panicking, so I just sort of tucked everything back together the best I could. And it was then that I realised that obviously it had severed veins and arteries in my arm, and there was nothing I could do to stop the blood flow. And I became aware then that my mate Noddy was screaming from further away, Dave, what's going on? And he's going, listen to me. And he goes, Dave was at a shark. And I was just at that moment, I was looking down in the water, and it was underneath me. And I said, shit, Noddy, it's it's a big shark. And I said, it's still here. I said, get out. I said, I'll be all right. I'll get myself out.
Oh, God.
And so Noddy said he was watching me try to paddle in, and I'd basically tucked my arm under my chest and tried to put as much weight as I can on it. And as I was paddling in, a set come through, and I thought, beauty, I'm out of here on the first wave. And the wave broke, and the wave broke right on top of me. It pitched me up and drove me straight down again. And here I am back on the sand with under the water rolling around, and I'm going, wow, like this is no fun. And then I got my feet on the sand. I pushed myself up again to get the next wave. So it was obviously the beginning of the set, and I copped about 4 or 5 waves on the head. And it was then that I realised I was drowning, and I went, wow, I'm going to die today. And I went, shit, I'm going to die. And I went, oh, well, I've had a pretty good life. And I was like pretty calm about the whole thing. And I'm going, and then I was thinking, because my kids. And I went, you know what? I can't die today. And I went, not today, Dave. And I got my feet on the sand again. I pushed myself back up and proceeded to sort of put all the skin back together. And then I heard Noddy from behind me, and he goes, come on, Dave, we're going to get you in. And what had actually happened, they seen me get cleaned up by the first couple of waves and realised that I wasn't going to make it out. And him and my mate Sean had paddled over, and if it wasn't for them two, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So it's, I got a lot to thank for with my mates.
Bloody hell. So what sort of injuries do you still have from that attack today?
I've got a left arm that works really good. Not as good as it probably would if it post-attack, but when I got to hospital, by then it's been a big night, and they said, look, this arm's probably going to come off because of the damage to the bone and, and obviously the trauma damage to the muscles. And I said, but I can still move my fingers, I said, it's still working. And they said, well, we do have another surgeon coming in the morning, which was like 6 o'clock. By now it was like 3 o'clock in the morning because we'd been through X-rays and all the other things that are happening. And I said, I can wait 3 more hours if it means I get to keep my arm. And so I hung around, and he was great. Brilliant job. Can't complain about our hospital system at all.
Dave, as I mentioned earlier, you set up Bite Club, which is a support group for those affected by shark attacks. What led to you setting up that club?
Well, afterwards, I remember like a couple of days after, the attack, I'm laying in hospital, and my girlfriend, she said, Dave, all your mates are trying to get in touch with you. I'll bring your laptop down. So she brought my laptop down, and as usual with Aussie guys, there's this big email trail. How's Dave? I heard you've lost an arm and a leg. There was all these stories going around, and in the newspapers of all places. And while I was there, I thought, oh, let's have a look at some of these news stories that tell me I've lost an arm and a leg. So I did some of that, and unfortunately, I discovered that news stories actually have a comment section. Yeah. And then it was like, wow, like who does this guy think he is surfing at night? Because obviously the footage showed me on the TV, like landing at Newcastle at 9:00 at night. And there was just all of this vitriol towards me. And, I bet he wants to go out and kill all the sharks now. And there's just these horrible things. And I'm going, wow, who are these people? So I just went, hey, guys, this is me. I'm currently laying in hospital, doing all right. No, I don't want to go killing sharks. I'm pretty indifferent to them. If they leave me alone, I'm pretty happy. And it was just like this shit just kept going on and on and on. And I remember slamming my computer shut and like there's tears running down my face. And I'm going, God, I was a good bloke yesterday, and today I'm the worst enemy of everybody who wants to protect the shark or defend the shark or whatever. That played on my mind a lot, unfortunately, and it was just like, what did I do wrong to allow this to me? And it was tough. So, obviously when I got out of hospital, there's the pain to deal with. There's all of the, the healing, which takes quite a while. There's the no work, which usually means no pay. So now I'm sitting at home wondering how I'm going to pay my mortgage and how long before I can get back to work. And this is also playing on my mind. And then the bad dreams start. And, I remember, trying to just run into my mates and they avoided me as well. And I'm going, wow, this is so alienating. Nobody really understands what I'm going through, but nobody wants to to help me here.
Yeah, right.
So everybody I sort of reached out to, I just sort of hit, it was either blown off or just hit a stone wall. And I went, wow, this is weird. I wonder if other shark attack survivors go through this. So then I started looking for shark attack survivors and I found, a couple of people who'd been attacked prior to myself. And I just said, hey, how are you dealing with the bad dreams? And what I actually found was while I was looking for answers, I found that everybody was still out there looking for answers as well. So we all sort of became each other's answers.
So how many members are there in Bike Club at the moment?
I think 400 and nearly 450 we're hitting now.
And it's not just shark attack survivors, is it? It's their friends and family, is that right?
Yeah, we have friends and family, because everybody needs to learn how to deal with us because we're a stuffed up mess. And the more people who understand some of the things we're going through, the better it is. So, yeah, some of our friends that have been affected by our attacks, some of our family, we have rescuers and responders because, honestly, I didn't witness my shark attack really. The guys who seen it, they had to deal with it. Yeah. I just had to survive it. And, they have to go through a lot. And especially, the recent attack in Sydney, the poor fisherman who filmed it, he's been copping a huge amount of flack.
Yeah.
When I look at that, I go, wow, why would you film that? And then you go, what was your natural response? Like you can't jump in and do anything. So he's actually filmed it for, posterity to say, hey, this guy was out in the water swimming and look, a shark took him. And then unfortunately what he actually filmed was not what he was expecting. And so he would be severely affected, and hopefully I can get in touch with him and have a chat and, just let him know that, these things are quite normal. It's okay not to be okay.
And so what does the club do to support those who have been attacked?
We do a lot of basically what you would call peer support. We all talk about what's worked for us, what hasn't worked for us. We have some great discussions where it comes to drugs and, nerve damage is huge within our group, and there's not many good nerve blockers that don't cause horrific side effects, which you sort of don't know about until you start taking the drugs. So we do talk a lot about prescription medication and things that have worked and haven't worked and alternative methods that we've all used. But it's all about most of the work gets done just by people meeting each other, and we sit down and have a chat and say, these are the sort of things that you're going to experience in the next, unfortunately, 6, 12 months, 18 months and 2 years. It's not a defined path, but it's basically a 2-year journey before you accept that you've got a new normal life, and that's what you're going to be with. But when we all get together, there's nothing like the group sessions that we conduct, and it's just informal and it just works. It's just people chatting through their experiences, and I guess we have other groups in the country that do very similar stuff. You'd have, domestic violence groups and cancer groups and, soldier on groups that all do very similar stuff to what we do. And And everyone finds that it just works when you're with someone who knows what you're feeling.
Joining me now is Professor Cullum Brown. He's the head of the Fish Lab at Macquarie University. Cullum, if we can start by talking about last week's fatal attack in Sydney, were you surprised by it? Was it quite an unusual attack?
Well, it was unusual in many respects. I mean, the first thing is that it's the first fatality in, 59 years or something in Sydney. So that's one thing that certainly suggests that, fatalities due to shark bite are extremely rare, considering how many millions of people are out and about in Sydney beaches and that sort of thing throughout the summer. But the other thing that was unusual about it is that the shark came back for multiple bites, and you very, very rarely see that. Right. But look, if you look at the footage of that incident, you can see that there might be a bait ball or something. There's diving birds, and the water seems to be teeming with fish. So I suspect that the swimmer may well have swum into a feeding shark accidentally, and the shark mistook him for something more edible.
Right. So many people are scared of sharks, obviously because of movies like Jaws and other Hollywood films, and then attacks like the one we saw in Sydney. But do we have the wrong opinion of sharks? Are they as dangerous as they seem?
No, absolutely not. I mean, one of the things that is interesting about the statistics is if you look back over many, many years, you find that the average number of people who are killed by sharks in Australia is about 1.5 per year. And so the chances of being killed by a shark is slim to nothing. I often tell my students it's like winning First Division Tats Lotto twice in a row. That is literally the statistics. So look, our fear of shark is really, I think there's two components to it. The first is the Hollywood, as you've mentioned, this rogue shark that's out to get somebody with a real malicious intent. That just doesn't exist. That's a massive misportrayal of what sharks are like. And I think the other thing is that, we have to keep in mind that the vast majority of shark species out there in the oceans aren't even remotely interested in people in any way, shape or form, and we wouldn't even come across most of them. So, the big three that I guess that we worry about are tiger sharks, white sharks and bull sharks. But even those three are all listed for protection in various ways or shapes or form, literally because we're having far greater impact on them than they are on us.
You've studied sharks for years. What are some surprising facts you've learnt about them in that time?
Yes, look, I mean, one of the many things that we've discovered over our years of tagging and tracking sharks in particular is that many different species have what we call social networks. So by keeping track of who hangs out with who and for how long, we can figure out what their social relationships are like. And it turns out that many species of sharks actually have besties, which is kind of weird. Oh. You wouldn't think of sharks as being social, but many of them are. And many of them also have personality. There's a number of different studies now that have shown that a variety of different species have these individual characteristics that are consistent over time. And so you can actually tell them apart based on their behaviour.
Far out. A random question. What about climate change? How is that impacting these animals? Like, can we expect to see more of them closer to our beaches in the future?
Well, I think that the thing about climate change and what impact that's going to have on sharks is that, we don't really know. It's a bit of a wild card. One thing that we do know is that the impact of climate change is far worse in the oceans than it is on land. So if you look at the southeast corner of Australia, it's predicted to be about 4 times worse than the global average in terms of changes in sea temperature as we move forward in time. And in fact, the sea temperature around Sydney is currently about 27 degrees, which is ridiculously hot. And that change in water temperature also changes the currents. And so, of course, the distribution of fishes and everything follows from that. So, if the fish change their position relative to the land or up and down the coast, north to south, then, of course, the sharks are going to change in response to that.
Okay, well, the big question, if someone's swimming at a beach, they're in the water and they see a shark, what should they do to try and protect themselves?
Yeah, well, look, honestly, there's a couple of things you can do, and that very much depends on what species of shark it is and how close to shore you are. But, of course, if you can get to shore, that's the first thing you should do.
Yeah.
What you should not do is, if you're a fair way offshore, is struggle and make lots of splashes, because that quite often attracts the attentions of sharks. But look, the vast majority of the time, a shark may approach a person out of curiosity, and they get within a couple of meters and they think, oh, that's a person. I'm not going to go anywhere near that because I don't like eating them. So most of the time they won't go near you. And you often see that on drone footage. The sharks come close and they do a Yui at the last minute thinking, oh, no, I'm not going to eat that. So I think stay calm. And try not to move, but if you can get to shore, of course, do so.
Okay, that is going to be hard not to just freak out when you see a shark in the water. I can imagine most people will just go hell for leather towards the shore. But there we go.
Yeah.
If you can remain calm, remain calm. Professor Colin Brown, thanks so much for taking the time to chat. Appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good day.
Well, thanks for listening to today's episode of I've Got News for You. I'll chat to you again tomorrow. Bye.